Hi, I'm Dave Monty and welcome to my video series, Everything Villages. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Usually these videos are focused a little bit more towards buyers, but today I'm going to show you my listing presentation, so stay tuned. As always, a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you like this video, please hit like. If you like my channel, please subscribe to it. Both those actions help these videos reach more people, and I greatly appreciate it. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 42-page guide, Buying and Selling a Home in the Villages, you can email me right here at davemontysales@gmail.com, and I'll send you out a copy. I also have a comprehensive cost of living calculator, and if you'd like a copy of that, you can email me right here at davemontysales@gmail.com. It does require Microsoft Excel, and I do have a couple of other videos on my channel that are tutorials for that calculator. Another disclaimer about this presentation, and the reason why I use air quotes on the presentation is I actually don't step through this presentation on a listing appointment. Listing appointments for me are conversations. I bring the listing presentation with me if I need to reference it to illustrate some points. Also, this presentation covers a lot of points that I might not cover specifically for your home. As an example, we're going to talk about should you replace your roof or not. If you have a new roof, there's no need to have that conversation again. These are just slides that I use for reference during a listing appointment. So here's how the conversation starts. I'm going to ask if you have any questions before we get started. I also want to know how things have gone with a past realtor. In other words, what did you like about working with that particular realtor? What did you not like about working with that realtor? Understand what you expect of me during this process. We're going to discuss your needs. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to tour your home. And I'm looking for a few things. Are there any updates that you've done that are going to affect the pricing of the home or that we're going to need to list in your listing description when we put it in the MLS? Are there any repairs that need to be done, specifically cosmetic? Then we're going to have a discussion on pricing. And there's strategy behind the pricing that I will discuss with you. And then I also need your input on what you need to get out of the house. All right. So here's the process. It's not rocket science. We prep it, market it, get it to closing. And I think the most important step is getting your house ready to sell, because the marketing materials are not going to look any good unless we get great pictures, and you're not going to get great pictures unless your house is in good shape. Also, I tell listing clients, I don't sell your house, I market it. Your house sells your house. People like it or they don't. We need to do everything in our power to get a lot of views, to get a lot of showings, and get people to like the house when they walk in the door. Again, none of the marketing materials are going to amount to anything unless it's prepped properly. We're going to talk about how we're going to freshen up your house, possibly update it. We're going to declutter, we're going to stage it. We're going to do a professional photo shoot, and then we will determine the best price to list your house at. The next step is to market the home with those really good pictures. Now, 80% of agents do this and this alone. They get it into the MLS, they hit go, and it goes to all the third-party websites. Once it hits the MLS, it's going to go to Zillow, Intrulia, Redfin, Realtor.com, all the top brokerages, all the local brokerages, all the agents. In other words, it does go everywhere online. The next 20% of agents also have it set up so when you hit go on the listing, it automatically goes to all their social media accounts, like my YouTube channel, Facebook, which we do use to market and boost. As the demographic of retirees shifts to that younger generation, they started using more Instagram. So when I hit go, it hits all of those places. I also pay for retargeting. You've seen it before. You go and look at a shirt online, and next thing you're over on ESPN, and there's this shirt. So same thing happens with listings. But I do pay for some retargeting. So if someone's looking at your house, they spend a lot of time on it, and it meets the metrics, then it will follow people around the internet. Custom printed materials, which is a little bit old school, but I like it for a number of reasons. I am going to show you these marketing materials. Now, I just switched brokerages to a company called LPT. For every single listing, we were actually mandated to get this package. Let me show you my favorite piece out of the box. It's this. It's a sign that we hang somewhere in front of the house. If you're in the villages, we do it on the lamppost. If you're outside the villages and you don't have a lamppost, then we can attach it to the garage door. What typically happens if you don't have a sign, like the potential buyer goes by your house, sees the for sale sign, calls the agent and says, tell me about the house. Well, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I'm going to tell them it's this price, this many square feet, it's been on the market for X amount of time. Here's the age of the roof. Just dry data points. Or if they call this number and text or call that number and type in your unique identifier, sends a link to your listing. The other pieces of materials that I like out of that package are folding business card that your unique information on it. We give these to the homeowners, and if you're local here, you give them out to neighbors. If you're around people, yeah, our house is for sale, you just give it out if these are going to hit the right people. We do have mailers. And sometimes we do the mailers, sometimes we don't, depending on circumstances, which we would talk about. We get all of this material. I use these at open houses, which are nice brochures, rather than simply printing something off my printer. Here's a one-pager. This is a two-pager. I got door hangers. A lot of times we'll just go knock on doors before an open house and put those on the door. Just a little bit of a differentiator than most agents out there. The last stage is getting it to close. I think it's just as important. Once we get an offer, I'm pretty good about getting it to the closing table. A lot of things can go wrong, usually centered around repairs. And I pride myself in trying to be easy to work with other agents in the area because it just makes deals go that much more smoothly. What we'll talk about is which title company I use, or give you options for title companies and explain what that process is. You will have an inspection. I'll manage the repairs for you. So just a lot that happens between contract to closing. I have a document for my buyers, and I'm currently working on another document for my listing clients that just has that process from contract to close. Top mistakes when listing a home. Declutter stage, good photos, and determine the best price. You're choosing an inexperienced agent. Low quality photos, failure to declutter, skipping staging, not making repairs, neglecting curb appeal. Again, all things that we do. I actually just got a listing 2 days ago where the homeowner called me and said, hey, my listing's not going anywhere. We had a long conversation. Let me take a look at your listing. So I took a look at the listing, and it were dark photos taken with an iPhone. The home was not decluttered at all. It wasn't depersonalized. It just did not look good. So when buyers are flipping through photos of all the different listings and all the options that they have, they're going to get to bad photos and just move on. In general, these are the top mistakes, and I don't make these mistakes. Your commission dollars at work. I do pay for a photo shoot, anywhere between $175 to $300. $300 is when you're doing a full drone and videos, and usually we'll save that for homes that have a view. We do pay for that advertising, approximately $400 per listing. And then I put home staging here. Now, I don't pay for home staging. We do all of our own staging, but it is a pretty big value, anywhere from $300 to $2,000. So I put $800 in here. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Again, if I'm dealing with somebody in Lakeside Landing where I happen to live and I'm going to list that house, we're not going to talk about the villages. But if I am on a listing appointment and I know that the listing client has talked to the villages or going to talk to the villages, then I will bring up these next two slides. A listing client can list with the developer, or they can list with a realtor. If they list with a developer, no realtors can sell that home, only their sales force can, and vice versa. If you list it on the MLS, only realtors can sell your home. The salespeople who work for the developer cannot sell that home. There's two major differentiations. Realtors are 100% focused on the resale market. We sell everything that is on that MLS. The Villages has 70,000 new homes that they need to unload. The developer makes a ton more money selling new homes than they do reselling homes. The agents have incentives and bonus plans centered around the sale of new homes. I don't know how many buyers I pick up from a lifestyle visit and just flat out ask them when they're sitting in my car, how'd your showings go with the Villages yesterday? And almost to the person, it's frustrating. We told them we wanted to look at resale homes. We told them we wanted to be in X location. We told them this, and all they did is they took us from our villa and brought us straight down to the new home section. Now, not every agent does that, but maybe 75%. Why is that important? We rely heavily on buyer's agents. Buyers coming from out of town relying on a buyer's agent. They don't know the market. They don't know the area. They don't even know that the Villages is a city and not just one little retirement community. Buyers are really dependent on their buyer's agent. On the realtor side, we have over 1,000 realtors. Now, not all of them are practicing, but you got, let's say there's 75% of them are practicing. On the Villages side, if you take what I said before and say only 25% will actually listen to their client and sell them what they want rather than just try to sell them new homes. They have 350 agents. 25% of 350 is going to be what? Probably going to have 80 people selling your house versus 750 people selling your house. Focus, focus. Last one is exposure. We've mentioned this before. When your listing hits the MLS, it goes to all these sites and many more, thousands of sites. 94% of all buyers start their search for a new home online, especially when they're relocating, which is most of the buyers in the Villages or in this area. And they're going to go to one of these sites. A lot of those buyers don't even know you can search for homes on villages.com, and they actually have to click something that says to look at pre-owned homes versus just new homes. You just get maximum exposure. And the last little thing that I mentioned is that our contract is a lot more flexible. As an example, usually we have reasonable cancellation fees on a listing contract. The Villages starts off really high and gets higher. The longer your home sits on the market, the more they increase that cancellation. And then as you're getting more and more frustrated not selling your house, it gets harder and harder to get out of that contract, sometimes thousands of dollars to get out if you want to get out. Should you update your home? So again, I'm not going to present this if your house is nice and it's already updated and we don't have to have this conversation. But it's just a simple function on the size of the market versus the existing inventory. Most of the buyers are fairly new retirees. They are coming from out of town. They want to move here and they want to unpack and play. The last thing, here's quote unquote, I just worked for 40 years. Last thing I want to do is come down here and hold a hammer. That market is huge. The buyers want to come down here, unpack and play. That's why the new homes move so fast. On the resale market, the number of updated homes is very small. I want to say it's probably about 20% of the homes are updated. And I think I'm being generous there. You have a very big market, very small inventory, which means that updated homes sell much faster and often sell for much better pricing. The flip side, the number of retirees willing to update or put sweat equity into the home is really tiny. The number of houses that need updating are huge. Small market, big inventory, longer to sell, and often homes sell well below market value. Then the last is flippers. You get a lot of flippers in this area, and they're all looking for that house that is in really nasty condition. But what ends up happening over time, and the house sits because it's not updated, you reduce your price, and finally you're in flipper range. So we have a way that I can put the flipper's profit into your pocket. I'm going to step through the ramifications of not updating a house if it needs it or replacing a roof if it needs to be replaced. The math is fairly similar, but I'm only going to step through the roof example because it's pretty tangible. The situation with the roof right now is around 15 years. Insurance companies are starting to increase premiums to force the hand of the homeowner to replace that roof. And buyers know that. The very first question we get with every showing is, how old is the roof? If that roof is starting to get to that 11, 12, 13 years old, buyers in their mind are saying, I got to replace that roof in a couple of years. I don't want to do that. And they'll just move on to the next listing, especially in this market. When I'm on a listing appointment, I hear this a lot. Let's just knock the price of the roof off the house. House appraises for $500,000 and you know it needs a new roof. You don't want to pay for that new roof. So we reduce the price, basically the cost of the roof. You pay for it one time. The house sits because no one wants to deal with the roof. Price reduction, you paid for it two times. Finally, the price gets low enough where a potential buyer says, you know what, this makes sense, I'm going to make an offer. Oh, it needs a new roof? Let's negotiate the price of the roof. So you end up paying for it 3 times. And the same thing happens for updating. If your house is getting around 11, 12, 13 years old, we're going to have the discussion about replacing your roof. What if you don't have the money or don't want to pay for it up front? I got a couple things that I've been doing. One is I partnered with a roofer, and the other one I'm taking on myself. If a house needs a new roof, you can pay for the cost of that roof out of the proceeds of your sale. My roofer will not put a new roof on until your house is under contract. So what we do is we have you sign a contract with the roofing company. They will agree to accept payment from the proceeds of the sale of your house, but they're not going to put the roof on the house until after it goes under contract with a potential buyer. What we do is, once you're under contract with the roofer, is we will do the permit application and go through the architectural review board with the villages. So as soon as your house comes under contract, it's ready to put that new roof on. And now the roofer will allow you to pay for it at closing. So just in the listing, we say new roof coming. Updating and paying at closing. Now, most of the contractors won't do that here. What I am doing now is that I will pay for the updates up front. I do charge an interest rate, and that interest rate is because I have money out of pocket, but also for the effort that we put in to manage the contractors. A lot of times pick the light fixtures and flooring and appliances and all that. So there's a little bit of effort on our part. And typically what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on floors, ceilings, appliances, paint, and light fixtures. When we get to stage it, I'll explain why we do that. But just know that we do it. Now, this is a real life example. Literally this morning, I met my flooring person who's starting the process of ripping up the old flooring at one of my listings. When I went on the listing call, this particular house had a lot of good comps where I could look at a home that was updated versus a home that needed some work. In this particular case, if the house needed as much work as this particular house needed, it was about $285,000 on the sale price. Updated homes of this same model were going for about $335,000. In this particular case, here are all the closing costs, 0 updating cost. If they sold it for $285,000, they're going to net $266,000. In this case, $335,000, same closing cost. And then this one actually had about $15,000 worth of updates. I charged 20% on my money out there. Again, that is not just interest rate on the money. That's just a way for me to calculate the amount of effort as well as interest rate on the money. So it's 2 things there. But if you take a look, the big difference is this. It's almost a $30,000 difference on this particular house that you can put in your pocket if you allow me to pay for the updates of your house. Remember before I said the villages is hard with their cancellation fees. The cancellation fee of this listing contract becomes the amount of money that I put in to that house, not the interest on it. So I am a little bit at risk. So if you cancel that contract, then in this particular case, you'd owe me back $15,000. Typically, we just put a long listing date on it, but homes do tend to sell a lot faster when we update them. Let's show you the difference between updated and not updated, decluttered and staged. This particular house on the right-hand side, and these are villas actually. This one over here and this one are identical models, just flipped. I didn't have a before picture for this, but it was the same carpet everywhere. It smelled a little funky. There was a lot of things going on with it. We went in and we did floors, we did paint. We didn't touch the appliances in this particular one, and then we staged it. This is my staging furniture. When a potential buyer is flipping through their listings, do you think they're going to want to go see this one, or do you think they're going to want to go see this one? I'll vote for this one every day. Now, let's look at the cost down here. And again, this is updating too, but I am talking about staging. To declutter and stage with an owner's furniture, our price is 0. If you're going to stage with third-party furniture, a typical staging company charges about $800 to $1,000 for the first month, or just to put the stuff into the house, and then every subsequent month they might charge $400 or $500 a month. Okay, so staging can add up in pricing. We don't charge anything for our staging. Okay. I don't know if you noticed it down here, but we stage living rooms, dining rooms, kitchens, and bathrooms. Why do we only do those? Buyers make up their mind within 6 seconds of walking in the door, and that's not an exaggeration. People buy emotionally, then back it up for logical reasons. They walk in the door, it feels like home or doesn't feel like home. And I see it with almost every single one of my buyers. It's that instant response. Now, once they've had that response, whether it's positive or negative, then they're going to go around the house and confirmation bias kicks in. So let's use an example. They walk into this house and they're emotionally attached. Man, we absolutely love it. Even if crown molding was one of their big criteria, they're going to walk into this house and go, wow, this is beautiful. It doesn't have crown molding, but we can put that in. That's one small thing that we can do. The bathroom needs a little bit of updating. That's easy. We can just replace the shower doors and the shower glass around and it'll look much better, as an example. The opposite happens as well. They walk in to this one, even if they don't have an emotional response, this is not quite our style, doesn't quite fit. And it happens to have crown molding. They're going to come in and go, it's got crown molding, who cares? It could check every single one of their boxes, but unless you emotionally connect with that buyer, they're not going to pull the trigger on the house. So the staging and updating is crucial. This one might need updating. It's got popcorn ceiling, older floors, same exact model, different kitchen, bold colors on the walls that buyers don't like, and then old dated furniture. If I'm going on a listing appointment, I'm going to be brutally honest and let you know that this is dated stuff. If it's possible, we would like to take this out and put in our own staging furniture. If it's possible, we'd like to take the popcorn off. On this one, I probably wouldn't touch the floors, but I would paint the walls. So those are all conversations I have with potential listing clients. My one brag slide. I don't spend much time on this at all. I like this one. This was back a year or two ago. I was the #1 rated agent in the area, and I like that because that's based on reviews, not on volume. I believe I'm in the top 10 realtors in the area, and I've sold about 200 homes over the last 4 or 5 years. Let's talk about pricing. Show you a range of pricing on this particular house. It was a pretty wide gap between a high of $585,000 and $482,000. So here's the math. I do a market analysis. I like to do my own market analysis by hand. Automated tools can't see into the house, can't hear what's going on in the backyard. Automated tools can't see how nice the landscaping is. If you happen to be on a listing appointment and they pull out this amazingly pretty presentation, they went to a third-party site, typed in your address, made a few changes on features and functions, and spit this out. Personally, I think I have a better feel of the market than most of the tools out there. I like to do my own. I do a reality check, and we'll look at a couple of those automated tools just to see what their range is, and we're pretty close. And often I'll just average them out between what I did and what they did. If there's a huge disparity, I trust myself over the automated tools, again, because I'm living in this market day in and day out. Market analysis, I have other videos that show exactly how to do this, but we search all stucco homes. This one happened to be stucco. We search relative location and relative size. They're all about the same size. We still do a square foot adjustment. On this one, I had to go back after I went in because there were some things in the house I wasn't aware of, like a summer kitchen as an example. I'll make adjustments to anything external. Does it have a golf cart garage? Do I need to adjust between stucco and vinyl? Over here, does it have a summer kitchen? Does it have a pool? How nice is it in the inside? How many updates or upgrades? You make all of these changes and you come up with the price. Again, this is just math. This is not setting the listing price. So we've done the math, we have a range, now we have to take several factors into account. The very first one that we will discuss is what's going on in the current market. Now I'm showing an example of an up market, but I'm also going to show you the example of a down market. What I'm showing here is that when you do a market analysis, you're looking backwards. The pending and actives are fairly new, but those are not going to tell us what homes are actually selling for. It's going to tell us who we're competing against. But most of the pricing when people first put it on the market in this particular market has been out of whack. I have plenty of market updates about that. When I'm actually looking at homes that have sold, I'm looking for ones that closed yesterday to 3 months ago, if not further back. So on average, the pricing is about a month and a half old. But that's not even true because they actually went under contract a month or two before. So often when you see that range of pricing, it's old. Okay? In an up market, that's great. In a down market, it hurts. Okay? So in a down market, same sort of thing happens. Here's my pricing coming down. I'm going to list it here. And I'm looking back 3 months, if not a little bit more. And my average pricing is right here. But I need to take this trending into account. Okay. So In a flat market, again, this is a down market. In a flat market, the house is off the hook nice. So we're going to put it right at the top end of the range. Okay? It's got all the updates, got all the upgrades, so let's put it near the top end of that range. Okay? But in a down market, we need to adjust for pricing coming down. So when I adjust that range and pull it down, it pulls that house that was at the top of the market to about halfway between the top of the range and average. Okay? So we do need to adjust for that in this market. About a year and a half ago, I had a villa that was listed for $425. All day long, the comps supported it. It was very nice. It was updated. It was a turnkey home with very nice furnishings in it. It was on the market for a month. And I think what happened is we got caught like right here, not knowing that the pricing was about to go down. So we're here, we lower the price, we're still above fair market value, lower it again, still above fair market value, lower it again. In the meantime, about 2 months into this home being on the market, a street over, another villa went for sale. Much nicer, much bigger. It was just such a gorgeous villa. And they priced it under the pricing of my villa. I called up the agent and said, "Why are you doing this?" And she said, "I'm getting ahead of the market." And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So she had the hindsight of already being on this slope, but she said, instead of waiting for that first price drop, I did the first price drop to begin with, and it brought us to that fair market value. Next thing to take into account when we're strategizing about pricing is how people search. So the tools and people tend to search in increments. The less expensive the home, they tend to search in $25,000 increments. In the middle here, about $50,000 and $100,000 at the higher end of the market. And a lot of the tools are set up that way. Why is that important? Well, it's just one more thing to take a look at. If I come up with a price that's $355, it makes sense to put it down to $350 because I'd be down in that lower bucket. You'll be the nicest thing in that bucket below. If I'm at $365, I don't think it hurts to push it to $375 because people searching for that home will be searching up to $375 and see it. I also use this discussion if we need to drop pricing. As an example, let's say we had a house that had $385,000. Do we drop it to $380 or do we drop it to $375? I'm going to vote for the $375 because what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down into that next bucket. And anyone who's got searches saved up to $375 will now see that particular listing. So when you first list it, you start off really high with the views. And then real quickly, it starts to diminish. If I drop the price by $1,000, you get a little spike because you hit the price reduction list and people are curious about the price reduction list. If I drop down into the next bucket, the views now raise up pretty close to what you actually got for views when you first listed the home. It's that bucket effect. So so understand that. Those are most of the talking points that I go through. Again, we don't cover all of them or you would get very bored. It is a conversation. It is not one way. That's one of the reasons I hesitated to put this on YouTube for the last 3 years, is because this is not how I actually present it. What I bring along with me is I do bring full listings with pictures of comps so we can review those. We'll review the listing contract with you, if not sign the listing contract at that time. I will review a purchase contract, show you what is typically negotiated in a standard purchase contract. And then I also bring along my 42-page guide, Buying and Selling a Home in the Villages, because it actually covers a lot of the things that we talked about in here, and I leave that for reference. So that is the listing presentation. The most important points to take out of this are going to be, you're going to prep it, you're going to market it, and then you're going to get it to close. I take a lot of time and pride in prepping homes because that is the foundation for everything else to come. It looks nice, you take better pictures, the marketing materials look better, the pictures in the MLS look better, your views go up, the number of showings go up, and when people come view the house, they have that first emotionally positive response when they first walk in that house. I hope you found this presentation informative, and I hope to see you around the Villages. Take care.